and welcome. And good morning. If you're joining us online, good morning and welcome. I feel like there's a little black thing up there, and I feel like I ought to wave at it. Yeah, hello. They're waving back. Oh, so welcome to our service this morning. For those who are online, if you're able to, you may actually want to grab yourself a candle if you've got one nearby. Don't make it a big deal. It's just it's going to be an invitation to a candle lighting ritual later in the service, and you may want to have one with you. Please get one if you're able to. If you feel dismayed by world events, both in this country and across the world, or if the grey ghost of loss has taken up residence within you, or if you feel angry for no apparent reason, no matter how heavy or how light your heart is this morning, please know that you're not alone and that you are welcome here. May you find connection and a sense of belonging during our time together. And so, as is our custom, I'm going to light the chalice. We light this chalice to warm our spirits and to kindle the flame of love and hope. We light it as a symbol of welcome. May its flame be a beacon of hope to all those seeking refuge and comfort, and may it light the way home for those wandering in the wilderness. And may it connect with the light of love in all our hearts, reminding us that we are never alone. We have gathered of different identities, sexualities, diverse beliefs and life experiences, and we have chosen to come together in this moment for worship. That makes this a holy moment, a sacred moment. In case there is anyone joining us who doesn't normally worship with us on a Sunday, I'd like to extend a special welcome. Unitarians have no fixed statement of beliefs or creed to which you have to agree in order to be accepted. Our attitude is that religion is wider than any church or faith group and deeper than any set of beliefs. Here, we practice a free faith, unfettered by dogma. As such, when I or anyone speaks of God, I invite you to bring your own unfolding personal understanding to that name, for it's yours and yours alone, and it may just be your most intimate relationship of all. There is a desire within each of us in the deep center of ourselves that we call our heart. We were born with it. It is never completely satisfied and it never dies. We are often unaware of it, but it is always awake. It is the human desire for love. Every person in this earth yearns to love, to be loved, to know love. Our true identity, our reason for being, is to be found in this desire. Love is the why of life, why we are functioning at all, and I am convinced it is the fundamental energy of the human spirit, the fuel on which we run, the wellspring of our vitality. Love should come first. It should be the beginning of and the reason for everything. Those words by Gerald May. So our service today will be a reflection on love, what it might mean for us, and the challenges to give and receive love in a world that seems at times to prize everything but love. And so to begin, some words from the Reverend Otis Moss III, who, in response to being asked, what do I know for sure about love, said this: I know that love is not only real, but it's the most powerful force in the universe. I know that love can never be fully described because poets have never stopped writing about it. And people have never stopped believing in it. I know that it can crack earth and bring people from the dead. It can open doors and it can lock doors permanently. That when you choose to love, it transforms you. And when you choose to love yourself, You crawl out from the shell that you've been hiding under, and it is the only pathway that we get a peripheral glimpse of God. That was from the Reverend Otis Moss III. I just love saying his name, Otis Moss III. So let's sing together. Let's sing our first hymn, which is hymn number 174, A Church is a Living Fellowship. So our first reading comes from Bishop Michael Curry, and if you think that name sounds slightly familiar, he was the minister who preached at the last royal wedding, at Harry and Meghan's wedding. He gave that wonderful sermon on fiery sermon on love, the kind of sermon that we're not used to in English kind of churches. It's great. I've come to see that the call of God, the love that bids us welcome, is always a call to become the true you, not an imitation of someone else. The true you, someone made in the image of God, deserving of and receiving love. There is a Jewish proverb that says, before every person there marches an angel proclaiming, behold the image of God. Unselfish, sacrificial living isn't about ignoring or denying or destroying yourself. It's about discovering your true self, the self that looks like God, the living life from that grounding. Many people are familiar with a part of Jesus' summary of the law of Moses. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, yourself. Loving the self is a required balance. If we fail in that, we fail our neighbor too. To love your neighbor is to relate to them as someone made in the image of God, and it is to relate to yourself as someone made in the image of God. It's God, up, down, and all around, and God is love. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and like that reading we just heard, a lot of them stress the imperative that we love ourselves before we're able to fully love others. And quite often I've heard it repeated, love thy neighbor as yourself. And I kind of go, as yourself? And there's an implication and an assumption that one does love oneself. But what if you don't love yourself or even like yourself? What if you're always finding fault with yourself? What if you're plagued with self-loathing? Does it mean we're being asked to treat others the same way? Because some of us have such a distorted, warped understanding of what love means based on our own experiences. And we first develop an understanding of love in our early years from our primary caregivers, commonly our parents. But what if those caregivers, based on their experiences, were unable to extend us unconditional love and their carers before them? And what if we grew up knowing, for example, like myself, that being gay was wrong and not acceptable to my parents? It's not surprising we have a misunderstanding of love's true meaning. It isn't surprising that we deny and distort parts of our true selves in trying to gain love and acceptance from others. Then what does love mean? The Reverend Jim Loader calls it the non-possessive delight in the unique particularity of another. The non-possessive delight in the unique particularity of another. Can we extend this kind of love to ourselves? How do I do this when I constantly find fault with myself or I worry about what other people think of me? Do you like me? The Reverend Jacqui Lewis says, loving yourself unconditionally is absolutely a hard thing to do. We're just not trained to do it. We're told we're narcissistic. We're told we're self-absorbed. But in fact, the command to love our neighbor as ourselves has to start with us. How can you make a daily affirmation that you are amazing, you are beautiful, you are gifted exactly as you are, and try to delight in yourself? It isn't easy. It should be, but it isn't. So I say we can begin to do this by acknowledging and accepting that it is not easy. And then to acknowledge and accept that I may not like myself much of the time and that I may make unkind judgments of others just to feel better about myself. Ouch. But I say that when we see these parts in ourselves, we regard them with tenderness and not more fodder for self-hatred. This is the beginning of self-acceptance and loving ourselves. And we begin by regarding ourselves with tenderness. Rachel Held Evans has written, I am not the first to make the observation that to love your neighbor as yourself, you obviously have to learn to love yourself. To love oneself is not synonymous with self-obsession or narcissism, or perhaps it's better to say that to love oneself well is not those things. To love oneself well is to regard one's place in the world with candor and grace, grounded in a humble realization of one's strengths, as well as a clear-eyed understanding of one's weaknesses. To love oneself well is to be able, to love oneself well is to be able to distinguish between what one wants and what one needs. To love oneself well means not to diminish the beautiful creature God made, nor to cultivate an outside image of that same person. To live and love like this is not easy. To live and love like this points us towards our true selves, which are part of a greater whole. Time to sing together again and sing our next hymn, which is hymn number 176. I'm not sure how often, how many times we'll either sing it. We'll either be singing it once, or I'm not sure if it goes through twice or not. But we're going to sing anyway. If the music carries on, please feel free to sing it a second time. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's 176. Come together in love. that's it. So it's one of the hymns. There's a few of them that are just too short, I think. I want to sing them a second time. It's so lovely. Anyway. Oh, no, it's fine. I think the moment has passed. Thank you. So to take us into a time of prayer and quiet reflection, here's some words from Unitarian Universalist Elizabeth Tarbox. I hadn't walked in the morning for weeks, not since the snow started. So I walked into the wind and it numbed my cheeks and forehead, and I leaned against it and addressed my questions to the silver winter sun softening the ice on Montponset Pond. What happened? Why am I so often sad and disappointed in myself? How come love has its dark side and feelings hurt and truth isn't kind? Where is hope and to whom shall I turn? What is faith? What shall I tell them? I said to the torn clouds. What shall I tell these good people who struggle as I do and fail just as often? And it seems that the soft silver sun and the sound of the wind said, speak the truth, simply speak your truth. And so I say, ours is a story of faith and hope and love. I say it is our need for one another that binds us together, that brings us limping and laughing into relationships and keeps us at it when we otherwise might despair at the fix we're in. I say it is the holy we need, the eternal beyond our comprehension. And one place we can find it is here, working and worshipping together. And I say there is a transcendent value worthy of our loyalty upon which we may set our hearts, and its divine manifestation is love. So let's join together in prayer. You may want to close your eyes and bring the focus of your attention inwards to your heart, penetrating its walls and breathing into it deeply. And as you do so, I invite you to picture yourself breathing in unconditional love, breathing it in, breathing it out, filling the space around you with it. God of our hearts, divine dynamo at the center of it all, we come to you once again asking for help. Help us to open to your presence here among us and within us. Help us encounter your presence in the world and in all those we meet as we go about our daily lives. We are told that we are loved unconditionally. Some of us find this hard to believe. Help us know your love for us. Help us when we forget that you are ever present. We ask that you remove those aspects of ourselves that hold us back from being in your flow of love. Reshape our failings. Some of us grew up feeling ashamed of who we were. We learned early on in our lives that it wasn't okay to be who we were. Shame was planted in us and we believed the lies it told us. Help us to know that we are wholly loved just as we are. And when we forget this, as we are prone to do, we ask to be reminded of this truth. Open our eyes and our ears to the truth of the words, we are loved unconditionally. And just as we are loved, so are others. May we learn to love more deeply that which you love. So now I'm going to invite us into a time of silence during which you may feel you'd like to offer up the prayers of your heart for those in need of that at this time, or you may just choose to be with the silence. And we'll hold the silence for 2 or 3 minutes. Carla Grosch-Miller's version of Psalm 23. This I know, my life is in your hands, I have nothing to fear. I stop, breathe, listen. Beneath the whirl of what is a deep down quiet place. You beckon me to tarry there. This is the place where unnamed hungers are fed, the place of clear water, refreshment. My senses stilled, I drink deeply, at home in timeless territory. In peril, I remember death's dark veil holds no menace. I lean into you. Your eternal presence comforts me. I am held tenderly. In the midst of all that troubles, that threatens and diminishes, you set abundance before me. You lift my head, my vision clears, the blessing cup overflows. This I know, you are my home and my hope, my strength and my solace, and so shall you ever be. Amen. And so now I'm going to invite us into a candle lighting ritual, or a time of candle lighting. And I'm going to invite us to sing Amazing Grace. You should have it on a sheet. Please beware, we're going to miss out the third verse. The third verse is not on the recording that's going to be playing. And also, please feel free to substitute wretch for soul. But what I'm going to invite you to do is to come up and light a candle for yourself. And when I say light a candle for yourself, I mean with the intention of adopting the tenderness and even the intention of developing, if you don't already kind of have that sense of love for yourself, that if it's a challenge for you, then the intention of at least trying to do that. I can imagine that some people might find that challenging. It is challenging, it's difficult, it feels selfish, it feels self-indulgent and narcissistic. But like in the readings, what it said in the readings, it's necessary in order to be able to love the other. We need to be able to love ourselves. So you may not feel that about yourself in this moment, but there's certainly, so lighting the candle is a display of intention. Please feel free to come up and light a candle at any point for the rest of the service if you feel moved to do so. And let's just remember that although in time the flames of these candles will flicker and die, will be extinguished, know that the intentions with which they were lit will never die. So if we're to love our neighbor as ourselves, it begs the question, who is my neighbor? And this becomes harder and harder to answer. We no longer live in small local communities. The world has opened up because of the internet, the World Wide Web. So in one sense, the whole world has become my neighbor, connected by the web. But the web also gave birth to social media. So how do we love our neighbor in a post-truth world dominated by Twitter and Facebook and all the rest? Nadia Bolz-Weber has written, in a post-truth world, in a fake news world, in a world in which we are being fed lines of bullshit, she has very earthy language, by the way, fed lines of bullshit and told it's the truth every day of our lives, in which our worst instincts are being manipulated in order to create clickbait. Headlines are manipulated, to be sure, and trigger the worst instincts within us, moral outrage about the world and about other people, and all that content and being manipulated. Why? So that we click a link. Why? So somebody gets ad revenue. That's the game. In a world in which what I'm told is true, what I'm told about my fellow citizens, what I'm told about my fellow Christians, what I'm being told about the world and myself feels fairly untrustable right now because of the ways that it is only trying to manipulate the worst parts of me so that other people can be enriched. So how do I answer the call to love my neighbor, especially when they're different from me, when they don't vote the same as me? And what about the irritating family member, the Brexit voter, Boris Johnson? How do we live into love? What blocks us from being able to do that? This has become my daily struggle, and I don't have definitive answers. But if it is to begin with me, then I need to recognize and acknowledge my own humanity and try to extend love to myself. How? Well, at the moment, it feels pretty loving to aspire to live an unhurried life, helping me to become more open to and able to be loving to others. So if I'm not so busy, there's more room to consider others and myself. And that sounds simple, doesn't it? No, because we live in a culture that thrives on being busy and that prizes success in terms of achieving money, possessions, influence, status, power. So to slow down and aspire to live an unhurried life can seem countercultural. To love oneself can begin to seem like a radical thing to do. And loving oneself isn't easy. It can be difficult. And again, I say it begins with tenderness, a tender awareness and acceptance of that difficulty, and a willingness to try. This is radical work we're being called to do, because our neighbor includes our enemies. This is radical and countercultural, and it possesses the power and the potential to change the world. If God is love and we greet others, some of us greet others with namaste, we are recognizing the divine in each other, then that applies to everyone. God is in everyone, not just in our friends or the people we like or just our tribe, but in everyone. So loving our neighbor can be difficult work, and we may get it wrong much of the time. I know I have. Sometimes it can feel just too hard to do. And so I know I rebel at times. But I don't believe we can be confused about this. Love of self and love of the other is what we are being called to do. In answering this call, we must acknowledge and accept each other's humanness, our feet of clay, and we might consider letting go of the need for idolatry of human approval, what I call the hyacinth bouquet syndrome. And yet it is the acceptance and approval of others that fuels the advertising industry and thus our economy. And we are constantly being told we're not enough, that our lives would be so much better if we bought this, that people would find us attractive if we bought that, all those messages. And to reject the capitalist forces that control our world in favor of love feels like anarchy. It is a fierce, radical love, and it's anarchic. So we might turn to our source, that divine dynamo at the center of it all, the God of our understanding, and take the risk of believing that I might be lovable and that I am loved without condition, that I am okay. I love watching seagulls on windy days. I delight in seeing them just floating on air currents. They're allowing the wind to take them where it will. There's such freedom in that and such grace to allow the wind to do that. All they have to do is spread their wings and let the wind do the rest. And I find it moving to watch and imagine myself as them. There's something about what they're doing that is so kind of right and what they're supposed to be doing, not ripping apart garbage bags and stuff like that, or nicking people's chips and donuts and stuff, which is quite often what they are doing. And for me, this speaks to the longing that I hold for love and for connection. And for myself, personally, I hope this is what a longing I hold for God. And can I be like the gulls, allowing myself to rest on the currents of love, resting on, some would say, God's breath, resting in that presence. For if God is love, then God's presence is love. Can I rest in love? Oh, that it was so, to surrender to love again and again and again. We won't always get it right. Lord knows I'm always judging other people negatively. But this doesn't mean I have to stop trying. I keep trying, even when I feel bad or tired, careful to extend tenderness and compassion to myself and not beat myself up with the proverbial stick of perfectionism. And it takes vigilance and patience and generosity and compassion for ourselves. And it takes a willingness to keep on trying. And here, I believe, is God's mercy and grace. We are welcomed back each time we stray from the path we are being invited to travel on. And that path can be the road to Emmaus, just every day, where your heart's not on fire. Can we begin to allow ourselves to believe, to let it in, that we are loved just as we are? The Reverend Jacqui Lewis has said, if we're going to make a world in which our children can love themselves, we've all got to do our part. And I mean all the children belong to all of us. What kinds of messages will we put in the universe for the children? Can we begin to paint a picture in which children see themselves as awesome, no matter their skin color, no matter their religion, no matter their gender or sexuality? Can we begin to paint a picture in which they see themselves as beloved? Because when they do, they'll paint that picture for future generations. And this is our goal. A healed world with people in which they love themselves and can therefore love the other. May it be so. Let's sing together again. Let's sing our final hymn, which is hymn number 188, Let Love Continue Long.
Let
And so some closing words now from Matt Licata, and this is called How Well Did I Love? It is so easy to take for granted that tomorrow will come, that another opportunity will be given to bear witness to a sunset, take a walk in the forest, listen in awe to the birds, or share a moment of connection with the one in front of us. But another part knows how fragile it truly is here, how tenuous, and the reality that this opening into life will not be here for much longer. Before we realize it, we can so easily fall into the trance of postponement. The spell of tomorrow looms large in the personal and collective psyche. At the end of this life, which is sure to come much sooner than we think, it is unlikely we'll be caught up in whether we accomplished all the tasks on our to-do lists, played it safe, healed all the wounds from our past, wrapped up our self-improvement project, or completed some mythical spiritual journey. Inside these hearts, there may be only one burning question: how well did I love? There are soul pieces and lost parts orbiting in and around us, the ghosts of our unlived lives, those aspects of ourselves that have not been fully allowed safe passage. To attend to that which remains unlived, to listen to its poetry and provide sanctuary for its emergence, is a radical act of compassion. One day we will no longer be able to look at, touch, or share a simple moment with those we love. When we turn to them, they will be gone. One moment will be our last to encounter the immensity of one more breath, experience awe at a color or a fragrance or the blooming of a violet, or to enter into union with the vastness of the sea. It will be our last chance to see a universe in a drop of rain, to have a moment of communion with a friend, or to weep in the light as the light yields to the night sky. One last moment to have a thought, feel an emotion, fall in love, or listen to a piece of music. To know heartbreak, joy, sorrow, and peace. To behold the outrageous mystery of what it truly means to be a sensitive, alive, connected human being. What if today is that last day, or tomorrow, or later this week? Knowing that death will come, how will we respond to the sacred and brief appearance of life? Perhaps our life's purpose has nothing to do with what job we will find, what new thing we will manifest or attract for ourselves, or what mythical awakening journey we will complete. Perhaps the purpose of our life is to fully live, finally, to touch here and now moment with our presence and with the gift of our one wild heart, and to do whatever we can to help others, to hold them when they are hurting, to listen carefully to their stories and the ways they are attempting to make sense of a world that has gone a bit mad, to speak kind words and not forget the erupting miracle of the other as it appears in front of us. Perhaps this is the most radical gift we can give. And so a blessing from Jan Richardson. This blessing takes one look at you and all it can say is holy. Holy hands, holy face, holy feet, holy everything in between. Holy even in pain, holy even when weary, in brokenness, holy, in shame, holy still. Holy in delight, holy in distress, holy when being born, holy when we lay it down at the hour of our death. So, friend, open your eyes, holy eyes. For one moment, see what this blessing sees, this blessing that knows how you have been formed and knit together in wonder and in love. Welcome this blessing that folds its hands in prayer when it meets you. Receive this blessing that wants to kneel in reverence before you, you who are temple, sanctuary, home for God in this world. And so May the wind of the Spirit blow through our world, giving the answer of God's everlasting love. That when you leave this place, you do so with peace and joy and love in your heart. Amen.